Hello, and my name's Megan, and I'm watching the world happen just like all of you. And I'd like to start by sharing acceptance is synonymous with love. Now, this isn't something that we've been taught in our world, okay? But it's a sentence that I'm beginning with because it's the foundation of everything that I'm going to say here. It was God Himself who told me during my near-death experience in 2007, Megan, I want you to tell everyone acceptance is synonymous with love. And it matters now more than ever as I share this message with you. And I encourage you and I hope that you share it with everyone that you know. So I want to make it very clear about my intent and what I'm going to be sharing today and speaking about today. It's not another message of blame and finger pointing to incite more anger. This is not a message of condoning more violence or division. I mean, we're seeing enough of that already in our world. So I want you to pay attention with absolute clarity about the responsibility that we all have for peace. Because what we're witnessing right now here in the United States and across the world is not just disagreement over a policy. It is something far more serious needing to be addressed. Peace itself is attempting to speak peacefully and forcefully, and unfortunately, either way you go is resulting in a message of peace being severed. Peace is not being acknowledged. It's not being listened to. It's not being nurtured. And I'm talking about those by those who can make the difference and help peace come about. So when that happens, fear continues to be the operating language of power. History has been blaring in our faces with the current situations in Israel, Gaza, Iran, and here in the United States. Our world history has also taught us all something that we cannot afford to forget. What later became named as crimes of humanity or crimes against humanity, it, it never started that way. That language didn't even exist. And instead of it being something, it, it was normalized. It began when people were reduced into categories and when due process was neglected and ignored intentionally in the name of order. So when enforcement replaced dialogue, when dignity became conditional, all of these things happened. Think about it. During my near-death experience, I was shown the Native Americans being annihilated in the 1100s, the concentration camps, and the overall of World War II and the civil rights movement. None of these atrocities happened all of a sudden. They were propagated feeling and planned. Those concentration camps didn't appear fully formed. They escalated, and they escalated quickly because silence, fear, and obedience replaced the conscience and concern for everyone's well-being. History judged those actions later, but the harm happened in real time, and we're still feeling it. I mean, think about it, or it wouldn't even be happening right now. Our history, our history gave us another warning in 1963. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who stood for peace, dignity, and love, yeah, he didn't call for violence. He called for moral courage to stand up to injustice with peace. And yet, so many religious institutions stepped back instead of stepping forward. Love was spoken about, but not embodied when it mattered most. Why? I'll say it, because he was Black. I'm speaking now because we can't allow that failure to repeat itself again. So, if you're a religious leader, a spiritual teacher, a pastor, priest, rabbi, imam, minister, an elder, a parent, or a teacher of our world in some capacity, this message includes you. This is not about preaching from the Bible or any other religious context because no one seems to be remembering the messages of love in the times like these in our world anyway. This is not about difference. This is about responsibility. So, history has already shown us that when faith communities speak early for peace and the human dignity, violence can be interrupted. When they hesitate, harm accelerates. This is the moment to intervene, not later, not after the judgment has already been written. So let's go back in history for a moment. Early religious intervention that did interrupt violence happened in India. It was a nonviolent resistance led by Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi's movement was explicitly grounded in spiritual and ethical principles, nonviolence. Religious language and moral authority were used early, consistently, and publicly. While violence still occurred, mass civilization slaughter on the scale seen elsewhere during decolonization was largely avoided. British authority was destabilized without civil war. So the key point is that religious moral framing helped restrain escalation by shaping collective conscience before full militarization. And when I sat with Gandhi at God's table during my NDE, he said to me, remember, with peace always comes resistance. He would know. He died for peace. In South Africa, a transition away from apartheid with Desmond Tutu, faith leaders did not wait until after collapse. Churches openly challenged apartheid before total civil war broke out. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission used moral accountability instead of revenge. So South Africa avoided widespread retaliatory bloodshed seen in many post-authoritarian transitions. When there's a delayed or absent religious intervention, that's when harm accelerates. And it happened in World War II, Nazi Germany. Many religious institutions hesitated or aligned with nationalism. Moral opposition came late, quietly or individually, not institutionally. And by the time resistance became visible, mass violence was already entrenched. Historians consistently note that early unified moral resistance did not materialize, which unfortunately allowed normalization to take hold in the minds of those watching. In the United States was the civil rights era with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King explicitly criticized religious silence in a letter that he wrote from a Birmingham jail in June of 1963. Look it up. It's in the Library of Congress. Many churches delayed engagement until public opinion shifted. Violence escalated before religious institutions broadly intervened. King's own argument was this: moderate religious hesitation caused more harm than overt opposition. Why does this pattern repeat? So institutions that intervene early can shape norms, legitimize restraint, and interrupt fear-based obedience. And when moral authorities delay, violence becomes normalized. Enforcement escalates, and later condemnation loses practical power. This is not about religion being bad or good. It's about using the authority of what is being preached inside of those four walls throughout the world, and about the authoritative religious figures' timing. Step up. So what's happening in different nations is not identical in law, structure, or history. But naming the patterns is not the same as making the false equivalencies. It's how humanity learns before harm becomes irreversible. When acceptance disappears, fear takes its place, and fear has always been the tool of oppression. The pattern we must acknowledge is this: peaceful dissent ignored, fear used as leverage, and human beings treated as expendable. History does not require identical systems to repeat itself, it only requires the same conditions. And here's what we need to look at with clarity: history will reveal the truth of what was already happening. But the good news here is that we don't have to repeat it. We have history to refer to. So every one of us has a role in de-escalation. De-escalation. Being an advocate for love, it doesn't require a title. It requires action, peaceful, grounded, and courageous action, as many are exhibiting in our world right now. We need to stop the dehumanizing language, whether it's spoken or through the actions, even when the fear is loud. Speak for dignity. When silence feels safer, just speak. Encourage the religious and community leaders to speak now for peace and restraint. Model acceptance in your own life, because love spreads through example. We lead by example. Interrupt escalation by choosing calm response over reactive anger. Peace doesn't arrive through negative domination in any form. It arrives through acceptance practiced in real time. So love is not just something talked about. Don't let it play out again like it did in the 1960s. And eventually it was chalked up as a good idea, but it didn't hold any weight. Love is the force that can stabilize humanity if effectively used in our collective education. There's no system suggesting atrophy of humanity would be sustained in the collective understanding that what is good for one person must be the goodness put into place for all people. So, wherever you are, and whatever name you call your God, whatever role you hold in our shared world, become an advocate for love. Because the world doesn't need more fear or violence. It needs more people willing to protect peace for everyone before history has to teach us again, but this time with an official title of World War III.